This Archon quest was amazing, yet it broke my heart. Greetings, you wonderful people of the internet, and welcome to my Fontaine Act 5 thoughts and review video. In my opinion, this was easily one of the best quests HoYoverse has created, and I really wanted to write down my thoughts on it, and so here we are. This Archon quest was amazing because it inflicts so many different kinds of emotions, expands the lore, and develops so many characters, especially regarding Farina and her backstory, and I'll get to that. But this quest overall was incredibly well done, from the writing and pacing to the voice acting and the ending. It's really impressive how HoYoverse has improved their writing as Genshin Impact as a game gets older. I'll be honest with you though, this quest had me shed a tear. Just like how I shed a tear looking at the sub counts not go up. Sub please, by the way. Before I continue talking about this though, please keep in mind there will be spoilers in this video for Act 5 of Fontaine's Archon quest. If you haven't seen or played through that quest, I advise you stop watching the video now. For those of you who are still here, let's begin. The first part of the quest I wanted to talk about was the ordeal that Navia goes through. Now Navia is a character who has been represented in the Archon quest so much, and even in Act 5, Navia still gets so much development, it is ridiculous. The Archon quest jumps immediately into the tragedy that befalls Poisson, along with the revelation that multiple people have been dissolved by primordial seawater, including Melus and Silver, Navia's bodyguards.
Melus and Silver. They won't ever come back here again. What should I do, Papa? I could at least hold a funeral for my father, and I know where he rests. But as for Melus and Silver, they're just gone. I just can't.
This took me completely by surprise. The loss of Melus and Silver really hits hard considering the fact we spent a lot of time with them in previous quests. They were there supporting Navia and us during the Linny and Vashir trials. They sacrificed themselves rescuing others in Poisson. When you couple this with the scene that happens later on when Navia falls into primordial seawater, it really hits home how dire of a situation Fontaine is in. The prophecy is coming true. So much pain and loss came from just a taste of what is to come. Honestly, it's nice that HoYoverse is not shy to killing off important characters. Yes, Melus and Silver aren't playable characters, but they still played a big role in the past Archon quests, and they're really likable in general. So it was a bold move to just kill them off like that, but it also left a huge impression, which was good. Navia has gone through so much during the Fontaine Archon quests. She is a brilliant character, and I should really make a video about her in the future.
I think I saw 2 Oceanids protecting you. It was only for a moment, perhaps even a fraction of a second, but they gave me the chance to retrieve you. Were it not for their intervention, I would not have been able to rescue you before your consciousness dissipated.
Man, it really hurts to see Navia just break down like that. Kudos to the voice actor too, she did a really good job. But for now, let's move on.
That voice, is that who I think it is?
It was a really nice surprise to see Mona of all characters appear in this quest. Funnily enough, this is actually Mona's very first appearance in the main story of Genshin Impact. And it makes a lot of sense too, considering Mona is all about divination, which relates to prophecies. Her insight on the issue regarding Fontaine and its crisis was a really nice touch by HoYoverse. And it's always great to see Mona getting more screen time. The involvement with Mona's master, Mage N, as she likes to call herself, was definitely something that caught me by surprise. You could argue the clue she gives to the Traveler is a little bit shoehorned in, as Mage N is possibly the only character in existence that could have given them that, but it feels like it was placed there more to help the player understand the purpose behind Focalor's ambition.
Just as prophecies are usually only the future as seen from the perspectives of the gods, could things be happening in hidden corners where the god's gaze does not fall? Are the things that you shall see different from the fate that the gods perceive?
The idea of how prophecies are only seen from the perspective of the gods, and how there are hidden corners where the god's gaze doesn't fall. That is a direct hint at what Focalor is trying to accomplish. Speaking of Focalor, Farina and Focalor are the crux of what makes this quest absolutely amazing to me. Both of these characters are the epitome of what it means to be a selfless god. They sacrifice so much to protect their people from the harsh judgment of the Heavenly Principles. Something that wasn't their fault at all. I will admit this, guys, I am guilty of looking down on Farina prior to this Archon quest. I was guilty of calling her lazy, useless, and even an idiotic character. On the outside, it seemed like she was doing nothing about the prophecy, just obsessed with drama and self-indulgence. I remember agreeing with Arlecchino the Knave about these accusations towards her, when in reality Furina was far, far from these negative traits. This poor girl went through centuries of pain, 5 centuries of torture and loneliness, all for the sake of her people. The scenes where it shows what Furina went through every day and then showing her sitting idle on her bed, telling herself she can keep doing it was just absolutely heartbreaking. She had to put on a fake smile, a false persona, and feign having everything under control. All the while, on the inside, she had no idea if what she was doing mattered. And then there was this shot. This shot keeps appearing in my mind whenever I think of Furina now. The combination of the tears and the smile, along with reassuring her visitor that she's fine as she maintains her act, represents the pure sadness and loneliness Furina has endured.
This must be the overflow of hydro from my person. Well, can't quite help being the god whose dominion is the waters, can I?
Seriously, man, I just can't help but remember that Furina was harassed about not doing anything about the prophecy prior to the trial. She was scolded by people. And what can she do? She's just a human. She was born basically out of thin air. And she had this role shoved upon her by Focalor, her creator. And at first, I was mad at Focalor for putting Furina through all this, but she too also had her own ordeal to go through. Focalor was literally locked away in the oratories for 500 years, storing up energy only to be executed so the people of Fontaine can be freed from the prophecy that the heavenly principles forced upon them. Through her actions, she really is the embodiment of the god of justice. It's amazing how much of an impact her character had despite how little screen time she had.
Hydro Dragon, don't cry.
Focalor wanted to enact justice on the gods who cruelly forced the prophecy onto her people, who only wanted to live as humans. As per what Mage N said, Focalor in the oratories was the hidden corner where the god's gaze didn't fall, creating Furina to act as the Hydro Archon to fool everyone, even Furina herself, who was in the dark about the plan all along.
Yes, it had to be done. To deceive the heavenly principles, you must first deceive yourself.
Focalor was literally born to die, a fate that she gave to herself, no less. All to save the people of Fontaine. Now that is an Archon worthy of praise. What really surprised me though was the depth of her plan. Her self-execution by the oratories not only removes the role of the Hydro Archon, but also restores Neuvillette as the sovereign of Hydro. Neuvillette, with the authority of Hydro, is able to abolish the prophecy by cleansing the sins of the people of Fontaine, which he does by replacing their primordial sea blood that Egeria stole with real authentic blood, which is quite interesting that he can do that.
People of Fontaine, your sins are forgiven.
Egeria, the previous Hydro Archon, was punished with this prophecy by the heavenly principles as they consider it a sin to create life. This is because Egeria, the previous Hydro Archon, created people from using primordial seawater as their blood. I really love how deep this is because it makes a lot of sense and also gives a lot of lore regarding Celestia and Tevat. The 7 Archon institution was a system placed by the heavenly principles. The Gnosis are the Archon's link with Celestia. Remove the Hydro Archon role and that link is severed, restoring the dragons to their former glory and allows them to gain command over the element they are tied to, such as what happened with Focalor and Neuvillette. This ultimately gives Neuvillette control over Hydro and thus primordial seawater. The cutscene where Focalor says goodbye to Neuvillette and dances in sync with Furina right before the oratory sword executes her was really somber yet touching, especially the words she leaves behind for Furina. I also really like the parallel Focalor has with Egeria, as she also becomes water when she dies. Both Furina and Focalor made the ultimate sacrifice for the people of Fontaine. I can't help but keep thinking back to when Furina just started crying during the trial. When the audience started to believe that she was not the Archon, she just sat there, panicking, begging for the people to believe her. She even risked her own life by touching primordial seawater, which was diluted thanks to Navia. Farina could be dead right now. She could have dissolved. She was well aware of this, yet she still did it. She was that determined to keep the act going.
Please, everyone, anyone, just listen to me. I swear, I really am your Archon.
Farina knew if they find out she's not the Archon, they could all die. Farina started to cry because she was breaking her promise to Focalor. She could no longer masquerade as the Hydro Archon, and so she gave up. She sat down with a lifeless look on her face. Everything she had worked for over 500 years, gone in that instant. I can't imagine how she would have been feeling in that moment. I really applaud Amber Lee Connors, her English voice actor, for her performance as both Farina and Focalor. The emotion she puts into her lines really sells just how tragic of a character Farina really is. Because after all, Farina is just a human being. Imagine living like that for 500 years. No divinity, no mental fortitude to be able to overcome that. There was also that revelation that Farina was the one who was saying those hidden words in the Fountain of Lucine.
So interminable. So lonely. Just how much longer?
That was coming from her. This really caught me by surprise. I was absolutely shocked when this happened. I never would have guessed that it was coming from her. And the fact that the lore behind the Fountain of Lucine is that it said that all water ultimately gathers at the fountain implies that we hear those words through her tears, because she's crying when she says this. Man, I can't, man. I'm getting emotional thinking about that now. Holy crap. She just needs a hug, man. She really did not deserve all of this. These scenes were definitely the highlight of Act 5. They reveal so much about these two characters, and it's just a huge lore drop too. But let's move on to a few other points I wanted to make about the Archon quest. Arlecchino's inclusion in the quest was quite a nice follow through from what she was up to before. Her main desire was not to only obtain the Hydronosis, but to save the people from his prophesized fate. Both of which she achieves, by the way. If there is one thing I am quite disappointed about, is that they didn't show the interaction between Arlecchino and Neuvillette when he gives her the Gnosis. It would have been great to see these two characters discuss the turn of events and interact in general. But oh well, you win some, you lose some. There is one positive attribute I find Genshin doesn't get enough praise for, and that's how it humanizes the antagonists, in this case the Fatui. From Act 1 through 5, Lyney, Lynette, Freminet, and Arlecchino have been an active force of support. This is a complete 180 from what we're used to. It is also really refreshing to see that Arlecchino is not just cartoonishly evil. Yes, Arlecchino still is a little bit suspicious, but she ultimately is an ally. I definitely think there's going to be a lot more to do with Arlecchino. Maybe in her story quest perhaps, if she's a playable character. I would be very surprised if this doesn't happen, if she does not become a playable character. That would upset a lot of people, myself included. She's definitely been set up as an ally for the future as well, much like how Child has. Speaking of Child, if there's one key piece of criticism I have for this quest, it would be the inclusion of the Narwhal, the new weekly boss. Now don't get me wrong, I did really enjoy this boss fight. The music and the setting in the spacey Primordial Sea was really cool. They did a great job with this boss fight. But it honestly feels like it was just thrown in there because the game needed a new weekly boss. You could quite literally just remove this boss from the story and it would be relatively the same. Now they did rectify this a little bit by using it as a way to develop Child's character, which is great because we get to meet his master, Skirk. I remember when she showed up during the 4.2 livestream thinking, who the hell is she? I really love the fact she just yeets the whale and Child through that hole, that's amazing. She does give really interesting information about Tevat's lore, such as how the Gnosis are the remains of the third descender and that they're a god's curse. I'm assuming the god she was referring to is the Heavenly Principles, but regardless, her inclusion in the story is thanks to the narwhal, so I can't be too critical about it. Also, that cutscene of it showing up with Child was absolute fire. It tried to eat everyone, man, it's terrifying. Anyways guys, that pretty much wraps up my overall thoughts on Act 5 of Fontaine's Archon quest. If you're still here, firstly, good on you for having a nice long attention span, and also thank you for watching until the end. Let me know what you guys think of this Archon quest too. If you enjoyed this review and would like to see more of this kind of stuff, remember to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. I make all kinds of Genshin Impact content and Honkai Star Rail too. Once again, thank you so much for watching guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.